Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the mock discussion 19 of verbal ability. Now, in this particular mock, if we are looking at the stats of how the questions were, let me just quickly open the pen over here to write it down. Yes. So there were two easy passages, one moderate to hard passage, and one hard passage. Whereas coming to the verbal ability section, okay, the para jumbles, only one was hard. Okay, and para summaries, one was hard. The rest were easy to moderate level. So having said that, somewhere around 2.5 passages accurately, which means to say 10 to 11 questions accurately in passages, and at least 6 to 7 questions accurately in VA would be a good score. So 18 questions would fetch you a 99 plus over here, 18 to 20 questions. Okay, now I'm just saying about the 99. If you answer anything above 15 accurately, it's a good score for you though. The first passage is as follows. It talks about, how clinical sciences have been going on and how it's important for you to continue education further when you're older, and not important, but how challenging or how, what are the different facets of you continuing education when you're older. So the first question is, according to the author of the passage, higher education is considered a wise choice in the United States because. Now, this question can be answered from this particular paragraph over here, where higher education is viewed as a wise choice as it invests in one's future and gains the asset that will be one's stronghold when climbing up the social ladder. Yes, which is the same as the first option, that it's an investment in the future and helps individuals progress socially. Okay, so very clearly we can put A to be the answer. Right. So the second question says each of the following statements can be inferred from can be derived about studying from the passage except. Now, if you look at the first one, it is main tool used to gain knowledge, right? Now that comes from this particular part of the passage. Now B and C both together, it helps us to perceive, understand reality. Education makes people a revered member of the society. These both come from this particular part of the passage, correct? So the only thing that cannot be derived from the passage is D. All right. So D will be the right answer for this question. My third question says, which of the following statements can be inferred from the passage by the information provided in the passage? Okay. All right. So now, if you look at this particular paragraph can be used to infer the statements A, B, and C. Okay. But D cannot be inferred from this particular paragraph. In fact, D cannot be inferred from anything in the passage. So the right answer for us will be D. Now, in the fourth question, he says, as stated in the passage, the author believes that after a certain age. Now, we get to see that after a certain age, what all changes happen or what all difficulties come in this particular paragraph of the passage. Yes. So here he says that if you decide to finally become a student, it's implied that you have the desire and all. However, sometimes just the desire is not enough. It's known that our age, memory, and all, to be very specific from here, it starts and it comes till this part. Okay. So one must have a desire to learn, listen, that is given. So that can be understood. Yes, one must study if one has dedication, motivation, and perseverance to study. Well, at the same time, if you have dedication, it will become, a student. It's supposed to be achieving, but that's not says that one must study only. So B cannot be inferred. C, studying becomes easier when one has already gained a lot of experience. Again, from this part only, memory to pay attention decreases greatly. Again, that comes from here. Right. So the only option that we cannot infer is B. So answer will be B. Yeah. Yes. So for the second passage, this was also one of the easier passages. Okay. Now the first question asks, according to the passage, which of the following did Donnelly suggest about Atlantis in his book? Now, over here, we can see about Ignatius Donnelly. This becomes a specific detailed question for us. So we know that Ignatius Donnelly basically wrote this. Yes. So accordingly, if we are looking at the statements, he's told about, ancient people knowing advanced sciences. For example, it comes from here. Donnelly believed there must be an incredibly ancient civilization that invented all these things, right? So this can be directly taken as our answer, whereas less sophisticated civilizations told cannot be inferred because of that. Atlantis disappeared because of incessant rains. No, especially Donnelly is not saying that. He's talking about the ocean shifting waters, right? So none of B, C, or D can be inferred. So A is the only option that can be taken as the answer. Now, the second question says, according to the passage, which of the following statements is closest to Berlitz' claim about Atlantis? Now, Berlitz' claim about Atlantis is what? That it got lost in the Bermuda Triangle. Yes, which is exactly what's told in option C. So this becomes a specific detailed question and we get the answer from this particular line. Now, third question is, on the basis of information provided in the passage, in which of the following ways was James' room theory different from that of Ignatius Donnelly? Now, obviously, we get the answer from what Donnelly believed in, that is over here, from this part till this part, okay, and what is believed by James Rom, that comes from here, well, till this part. Okay. Now, if we look at this particular part carefully, we can clearly see that James Donnelly, Ignatius Donnelly is using, a metaphor of Plato to bring out things, whereas, just one moment. Right. So in this question, we have to look at the differences between what Ignatius Donnelly said and James Rom said. Now, Ignatius Donnelly basically told about how oceanic water plates are shifting and all, and that location is exactly precisely what Plato has told. But when we are looking at James Rom's theory, James Rom is basically telling that Plato said all this because he wanted to bring out his philosophical concepts. He wanted to address his philosophical concerns through this point. Okay, so for us, that will be taken as the answer in A. Now, the last question is, which of the following options best summarizes the main idea of the passage? Now, as you know, this is a smaller passage, so the main idea is going to come either from the starting or the ending. And here, if we are reading the large paragraph carefully, then we can understand that the whole passage boils down to how we are using Plato's metaphor for looking for a better society, or how a society should actually be, which is provided in D. So Atlantis was Plato's metaphor advocating for a utopian society. Okay, so we get this answer from last part of our paragraph. All right. So now let's go to third passage. Uh, in the third passage, we can clearly see that we are talking about how the human story is being shared and about the struggles of the human, beings and the temporary or transient nature of life on Earth. Okay, and how different things like science, art, and other things help us cope up with or understand this kind of a, plight. So the first question comes from this particular passage, comes from this particular paragraph. Okay. For the foreseeable future, we shall have to get used to this fragility, and we are going to need considerable imaginative resources to cope up with it. What does the author try to say when he says this? Now, see, basically, what is the author trying to say? The author is trying to focus on what the resources that are tangible, right? And what is he doing? He's highlighting the importance of art, religion, and science. Okay, but those three things are intangible. Okay, so he's basically saying how intangible things are helping us cope with our fragility. Yeah. Now, in the four conditions or the four options that are given, option B captures the interest the best. Since we humans will become more fragile in nature, we will need even greater resources to engage us mentally. Okay. Whereas for option A, no such thing is mentioned. Right. Current resources are not sufficient to assuage the fragility that people are experiencing because of deteriorating conditions. Not mentioned. Neither when we are talking about C. Okay. Here he says current resources must be viewed uh, imaginatively to realize their true potential and helping us storage our supposed fragility. Okay. Now, if we are looking at C, it's very clearly stating that instead of current resources, imaginative resources are a different group and they should be viewed as such. Correct. So the relation between existing resources is neither mentioned nor inferable. So having said that, the right answer will be B. Right. So in this question, what's asked from the statement, we are also less different from our ancestors than we normally like to think. Which of the following can be inferred? Now, when this is given, when this particular statement is given, so although this is true, we have to, consider the factors which earlier increased our fragility, which were absent, right? What were those, like wars and all? Now, what is happening? Some new factors are coming in, like what? The increase in technology. Okay, that is also bringing us the same level of fragility. Yes, which our ancestors experienced. So in terms of fragility, more or less, I think we are like, less different from our ancestors as we normally think we are, because the initial thought was that, okay, with so much improvement in technology, there's some kind of decrease in fragility. But although now there are no wars and technology is improved, somewhat more or less we are at the same level. Yes. So if you're looking at option A, yes, that might seem correct, but the details are very different from what it should be as per our understanding, right? So that's not the answer. Now, if you're looking at B, that is also not the inference of a question, because why? There's no comparison at all of equality between different sections of the present generation and the past, no? Yes. So in C, we can take that as the answer. All right, because that's exactly what the author means, and that's what we've explained. Now, although humans today might try to persuade ourselves otherwise, we are just as fragile as our ancestors had been. Now, option D is kind of contrary to what that line implies. Okay, by saying there's a great difference between us, it's different. It's exactly opposite to what's being told in the question. So your answer should be C. Now, in this question, which of the following most accurately describes the role of science as mentioned in the passage? Now, see, basically in the passage, what's been told about science, the primary role of science was to uh, is not to reduce fragility, but it is to make sure that we understand each other's conditions. Okay, so because how does this happen? When you have that realization that everyone is facing the same thing, not only poor people, even rich people are going to face the same thing, then we can all start working together towards the common goal. That's what's been told in the passage, right? That's what we can understand from the passage. Now, according to the options, yes, option A says by recognizing the fragility we face is the same which experienced by others, we may become capable of adjusting to such fragility, which is what the explanation just I mentioned now. Correct? So according to me, the answer should be A. Now, again, this is one of the except questions. So I would like you to go through the passage detailedly and find out which sentence is pointing to which of the following. Here I've color coded it just for you. So if you see, it can be inferred from that the author of the passage is most likely to agree with which of the following statements except. Now, the first part, not only imaginative resources are not separate intangible resources, but they are also intertwined with factors considered inherently practical. That comes from the second color, the orange color. Okay, wherein we are seeing that there's an authentic science, and belittling the imaginative inspiration of authentic science is as fascious as the view that sees arts as just pleasant extra in human life. Okay, so we have to say that it's not only the intangible resources, the imaginative resources, uh, but they are also intertwined with the factors. Okay, now when we are looking at the first part, it's difficult to, in the present time, to completely eliminate fragility, and we would need imaginative resources to deal with it. That extends from the first part of this. Okay, why is this not writing? It extends from here till this part. This can be inferred from this part. Whereas when we are looking at people, sometimes readily accept trivial scientific finding as an important one because of their dissatisfaction with the what science has promised earlier, can be taken from here, wherein the science is giving a lot of unrealistic hopes, and it's dangerously easy to forget how it matters. The one thing that cannot be inferred from the passage is D. So D will be our correct answer. Right, in the fourth paragraph, in the fourth passage, we can see that the first question talks about, in the context of the phrase to aspire to the same level of generality. Yes, in the second paragraph, each one of the following statements can be inferred except. Now, if you look at this particular question, he's asking in the context of the phrase to aspire to the same level of generality. In the second paragraph, each of the following statements can be inferred. Now, obviously, we can see that the first statement, yes, second statement, and third statement can be inferred from what they are speaking in the second paragraph. Okay, over here, this part, this part. Okay, but here he says specific concepts must be applied to the comprehensive political ideology, since there are certain common areas between them. Now, nowhere in the part has it mentioned about specificity, right? So I think this part cannot be understood from this particular paragraph. And if you're going to the second question, in the second question, he's asking a significance that goes beyond the baseline fact. All the ideas in the question identify something of value. What's the author trying to imply? Now, In the first statement says inclusion of various ideas having value is generally misunderstood as increased significance of the specific right in which such inclusion is done. Now, but that's not what the author is trying to tell us, right? Yes, the author is trying to tell us that there's some kind of a loss in value of specific right or idea when there's inclusion of various ideas that are considered more of value than that okay idea. So any value addition for that matter. Yes. So A cannot be implied. When we're looking at second one, over here also again, he says value of the included ideas under specific right is always significantly less than what the right otherwise helps us to accomplish. Uh, See, very frankly speaking, no matter how many ideas are included, okay, it reduces the value of specific right, right? So this part is not mentioned anywhere in the passage. Okay, so any fall in this value of specific idea happens because of what? Dilution, not inclusion, as per the passage. So B also cannot be inferred. Now, she says it does not matter if the various concepts are included are of value. The decreased value of the specific concept as a result is what matters. Yes. So this is something that we can infer from the passage. Whereas again in D says exclusion of a wide variety of concepts from a specific idea would help us to maintain the exclusivity of that specific idea or of that specific right. Now, see, although this is correct, I'm not saying that this is wrong. Okay, but this is not what the author is trying to imply. As a statement, this can be, taken as correct statement, but it's not a direct implication of what the author is giving us. So we cannot consider this to be our answer. So the answer will be C. Now for the next question, which is in the phrase, the extraneous idea that are subjected to process of conceptual takeover end up being themselves distorted. Now, which of the following can be, best inferred? A says that conceptual expansion leads to misunderstanding regarding the actual characteristics and applications of the specific idea. Now, as far as I understand, this is the most, valid inference that we can derive. Not only is he saying that the value reduces, but he's also saying that the inherent features of the concept are misunderstood because of the included ideas. Yes. So very, very clearly, A is going to be a answer. Now, as far as the next question is concerned, it asks the author of the passage is most likely to agree with each of the following statements except. Okay. So A basically talks the need for specific concepts and ideas is usually more in guiding the actions than the ideas that are applicable in the general way. Yes. So this is true. This actually is the main idea of that passage. So this part can be directly inferred. Okay. Whereas B, the specific ideas are incapable of serving as a comprehensive ideology guiding the actions independently. Now, this can also be inferred. Okay. Why? From this particular line about a single concept, say human rights. Yes. So from that line, it is over here in the second paragraph starting, by the way. I could not highlight this, I guess, or did not get saved. Okay. So from here, we can identify this particular line also. Yes. Now, the third one says the importance of a concept depends upon how specific the concept is in highlighting the rights and duties of the people. Look, although it's not clearly stated in the passage, we can take it to have, a positive connotation in the context of the passage. And that is why we can say that, yes, maybe the author will agree to this. Whereas when you're looking at option D, okay, it's going to be completely incorrect. Why? Because we cannot, understand that the word foreign is contrary to what is given in the passage in the first paragraph. Yes? Okay. So by that logic, The one thing that cannot be inferred is D. Now, in this particular question, it's a para summary. This is an odd man out question. The 5 sentences are given to you. 4 of them will be in an order. Very clearly speaking, the first 4 sentences talk about wings of fire. Yes, the book that Abdul Kalam has written about. And the 5th sentence talks about his contributions to other things like rocket technology and, uh, how India was helped by him to become self-sufficient. Now, if you're trying to understand it from a perspective of commonality, definitely we can say that we can bunch first 4 sentences together and leave out the 5th sentence. So your right answer will be option 5. Now, as far as the next question is concerned, this is basically a para jumble question. Now, this is also an easy question. So just looking at the 4 sentences, you can see that knowing how to tell different hard drive noises apart and learning what they might mean can save your computer. Obviously, we can say that that's not going to be the first sentence because we've not heard anything about noises yet. Second one is, no, PC is truly silent, but your computer shouldn't be louder than your lawnmower. So here we see that, the concept of sounds and noises is introduced. Yes. And obviously in the next 2 sentences also, the concept of noise is only going ahead and ahead. Right. So obviously I can say that 2 will be my first statement. Yes, because 2 begins by introducing PC as the subject of our discussion. Yes, and that sentence also compares the PC with a lawnmower. Now, lawnmowers wiring, okay, or whirring, whatever you call it, WHIRRING, okay, which you can find in the 4th sentence, or grinding noises that you can see, okay, can be drowned by what? Music, right? Which is suggested in 4. So if you have to turn up your music just to drown out the whirring or grinding noises your machine is making, you may want to look into that. Correct. So when we are talking about this, lawnmower, this kind of sounds that the lawnmower makes are put in 4. So clearly I can go with 2 and 4 as our concomitants or our mandatory pair. Now when we are going to 1, okay, knowing how to tell the different hard drive noise apart, and if you're looking at C or the third option, if your computer is making clicking or grinding sound, then any sort of low pitched buzzing noise, it could indicate a dying disk. So this is going into the specificity and this is the generality. So naturally 1 and 3 would be my mandatory pair. So totally 2, 4, 1, 3 should be the answer. So this is a moderate question. This is not the easy parajumble. This is a moderate parajumble. Yes. The next one is an para summary question. Let's see what the passage is speaking about. Now, this passage is talking about the taste that people have in different objects and how education plays a important role in, forming the taste. But the main idea of this entire passage actually comes, excuse me, main idea actually comes from this part only. The word taste literally means digestion, degustation, and it's going to be, from that part to here, heart and mind. Okay, so this is the only main idea of this passage, which clearly, brought out in 1 minute. Yes, that's clearly brought out in option D. Okay, when you're looking at options 1 and option 3, these going to be the partial scope choices. Yes, taste varies from person to person. It's closely dependent on social standing. And okay, here also again we're talking about education. So these are very partial scope choices. And when we are looking at option 2, taste is confined to food. That is actually a contrary thing. It's an opposite answer. So the right answer will be D. Yes. Now, next one. This is again going to be a para jumble. So for this para jumble, we can see that statement 2, the first person to realize a concept, is a very, very, what do you say, generic statement. Yes, because we're talking about floating and all, we have to talk about who started it, right? So naturally, again, when we introduced about Archimedes, we'll talk about what his principle is in detail, which is given in 4. So 2, 4 becomes the concomitant pair. I think this is a very, very simple question, right? And then over here, you're talking about the principle of buoyancy. Yes. Next, you'll talk about what is that force. So buoyant force is given in third one. And finally, a good example of this principle. So at the end, you're giving the example as, a floating ship. So you're explaining the theory and then you're giving an example, the right convention in which you should be doing it. This particular question we've already done, no? Okay. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. Sorry. Yes. So now this passage is talking about, we can see that, where is this? Why am I not able to write? 1 minute. Right. Now, this passage is basically talking about what this passage is talking about. The idea that American culture or the Western culture has taken over the entire, world slowly. And it's basically detrimental for the survival of indigenous cultures. Yes. Now, according to that understanding, and why did this happen? This happened because of communication technology. Okay. So is it only communication technology though? No, communication technology and globalization, the advance of both communication technology and globalization. Okay. So that's the key idea. Now that key idea, if we are looking, the first option is a partial scope. Okay. Third option again is partial scope because it's only talking about globalization. And D option again is also a partial scope choice. The only thing that actually talks about all of it is B. So your correct answer will be B. Now this is a parajumble and a little tougher at that. Okay. Now if you look at this parajumble clearly, the the fourth sentence is kind of introducing the terms misinformation and disinformation, right? And how is it doing that? It's doing that by showing the difference between those two terms. So naturally, I think we should be taking fourth statement as a first choice. Yes. Now, if you're going again to the second statement, you can see that both forms may be shared widely regardless of whether or not the sharer knows the information is wrong. So it's showing a similarity over there, right? So we can put that 2 is a following 4. Now, after this, 1 provides what? The reason for the wide sharing of both misinformation and disinformation. Yes, what's the reason? That people are anxious, so they're looking for answers. So the next part will be 4, 2, 1, and obviously 3 should come at the end. Yes, are we clear? All right. Yes, the next question is again an odd man out question. Yes. Now, all the statements, if you can look over here, all the 5 statements are talking about global warming. 4 of them are talking about components and how it occurs. Okay. Yes. Why the climate is important. What are the important concepts of climate? That's what the 4 statements are talking about. Whereas, if you look at the third statement, okay, third statement says all the weather and climate are connected to each other. It's important for us to understand how they are different. Yes, that does not have anything to do with global warming. Very specifically, it does not have anything to do with global warming. So, in my opinion, third option should be the right answer. Okay. Next one is a para summary, and this para summary is kind of easy. Okay. He says that the main function of scientific. Okay, I'm sure that you must have read through this. Yes. Now, if I'm looking at statement one, science and its discoveries such as that of structure of DNA have helped in eradicating genetically transmitted diseases. Such a claim is not told about in the passage. Okay. So when that paragraph is being read, that claim has not been made. So naturally, this is gone. Okay. Now, when we are talking about the second statement, okay, this statement is kind of giving us the main idea. Yes. Now, if you see here, this new knowledge provides educational, cultural, and intellectual enrichment and leads to technological advancement and economic benefits. Yes. So basically, that is the same thing that we can see from scientific knowledge and discoveries have ideas brought, uh, you know, have ideas brought about breakthroughs in technological and economical advancement, which is same as economic benefits and technological advancements, right? So B captures the essence. Now D is basically talking about, a comprehensive inquiry of sorts, where the spread of knowledge is not the precise purpose of scientific disciplines, right? So that again cannot be considered as an answer. So obviously the answer is going to be B. Okay. Yeah, I think with this question, we come to the end of this mock. I hope you all have done well. Thank you and have a good day.